It's happening, and not everyone will sense it. But if you do, it means your final cycle has already begun. You weren't born to endlessly repeat. You were designed to complete what others could not. The recent full moon didn't just bring intensity, it brought revelation. It stirred something ancient, something buried deep within your soul, waiting across lifetimes for this moment. Many souls return to Earth to learn, to evolve slowly, to loop through familiar patterns again and again. But a rare few, they're here for something far greater. You're not here to chase karma anymore. You're here to close the loop, to graduate. And if you're on your last cycle, the universe responds differently. You start feeling like you're walking ahead of the pack, not because you're better, but because you're almost done. And this isn't your beginning, this is your final level. And the universe is quietly handing you tools to master it. And if you've recently found yourself asking, "What's my purpose?" then pay attention, because there's a reason that question is rising now. And it's not what you think. I'll explain why later. So stay with me, because something else has started happening. The more awake you become, the less this world feels familiar. It's like you're watching a play, and everyone's still convinced it's real. You move through crowds, but you're not really in them. You play along with the rules of society, but deep down, you know they're made up. It's like you're in the world, but no longer of it. You don't chase status. You don't obsess over roles. You see people living on loops, chasing money, clout, chaos, and none of it feels real to you because you've seen through the script. It's as if the full moon peeled back a layer, and now you can't unsee what's underneath. And it's not that you're emotionally cold, it's that you've already felt what others are still learning to feel. You're not numb, you're awake. You feel like an alien, but somehow more human than ever. And that strange distance, that quiet separation between you and the noise, it's not accidental, it's spiritual, because in the last cycle, you stop playing the game and start observing it. Also, do you feel like you relate to any of these? Feel free to leave a comment below with what it is. And if you want, you could even leave 999 along with it in order to align with this, because the next sign, it's something you probably relate to. Music. You don't just feel for others, you feel as them. There's a kind of sensitivity that goes beyond emotion. It's not about being too soft or too much. It's about being deeply connected to everything. People, animals, even the earth itself. If you're in your last life cycle, this isn't something you developed overnight. It's been carved into you over countless incarnations. You've lived through suffering, not just yours, but collective pain. And now, even in silence, you carry it. You see someone hurting, and your body reacts like it's your own wound. You witness injustice, and it stays with you for days. You might cry during a simple moment of kindness, not because you're fragile, but because it breaks something open in you. The soul remembers even when the mind forgets. This sensitivity may have even peaked around the full moon, amplifying your emotional channels and stirring a knowing that you couldn't quite explain. You can't scroll past cruelty. You can't just ignore what the world is going through. It's not that you want to feel it all, you simply do. And deep down, there's a part of you that knows this isn't weakness. It's a signal that your soul is no longer working through individual pain. It's transmuting collective pain. You don't make a big deal out of it. You probably never even told anyone how heavy it gets sometimes, because it's not about attention. It's about integration. You carry this weight not as a burden, but as a quiet vow. And the universe knows it, because when a soul nears the end, its compassion deepens into something cosmic, something ancient. And there's a reason why you don't react to things the way others do anymore. That brings us to this next sign, one that shows up not in what you do, but in what you refuse to be part of. You're not avoiding chaos because you're afraid. You're avoiding it because you've outgrown it. At some point, the noise just stops being interesting. The arguments, the back and forths, the petty power games, they don't spark you anymore. They drain you. You no longer feel the need to prove a point or win a debate. Not because you don't care, but because you've realized most of it leads nowhere. People might call you too quiet, too passive, or too distant. But what they don't understand is that you've already lived through 100 lifetimes of fire. You've screamed, you've fought, you've been burned by your own rage and scorched by other people's storms. And now, peace isn't a preference, it's a requirement. You don't want to be in rooms where gossip is currency. You don't want to entertain chaos disguised as excitement. When someone tries to pull you into a spiral of drama, your whole system pulls back, not from fear, but from clarity. There's nothing romantic about dysfunction anymore. You crave stillness like oxygen. This doesn't mean you're passive. It means you've become surgical about where you place your energy. You protect your field because you understand how sacred it is now. And whether people understand it or not, you're okay being misunderstood. Because souls in their final cycle don't waste time with unnecessary battles. They've already earned the wisdom that says peace is not the absence of noise, it's the presence of alignment. And soon, you'll notice something even stranger. Not only are you pulling away from the chaos, but reality itself is beginning to shift around you. At a certain point, the questions get louder than the noise of everyday life. They press at your consciousness like a heartbeat beneath everything. Who am I really? Why am I here? What's beyond all of this? If you're in your last life cycle, that search for truth doesn't come gently. It hits like a spiritual urgency. It feels like waking up mid-sentence in a conversation your soul was having long before you were born. You're not just interested in spirituality, you're pulled into it like gravity. You might suddenly devour books about metaphysics, energy, past lives, astrology, the nature of reality. You binge teachings, seek out spiritual communities, and still feel like you've barely scratched the surface. And no, it's not because it's trendy or aesthetic. It's because surface-level life just doesn't cut it anymore. Small talk makes your brain ache. Performative spirituality feels fake. You want substance. You want answers that vibrate in your bones. You begin to sense that your entire life, every joy, every heartbreak, every strange synchronicity, has been leading you to this moment of remembrance. It's not about adding new information. It's about peeling back the layers until what you already know finally returns to you. You don't want to find yourself. You want to remember yourself. And yes, at first, this journey can feel overwhelming. You might feel lost in the flood of content, teachings, paths. You might wonder if you're doing it right. But slowly, the fire of seeking begins to settle, not because you've lost interest, but because you've tapped into something deeper than information. You've moved into recognition. Because the truth is, when you're near the end of your soul's incarnational journey, the universe starts pulling you back toward origin. The veil thins, the cosmic memory returns. You're not just asking questions anymore, you're becoming the answer. What you're seeking isn't outside of you, it's the oldest part of you remembering itself. And once you taste this, even just once, you realize you'll never go back to the shallow end of life again. Karma used to take years. Now it takes hours, sometimes minutes. One of the clearest signs that you're in your final incarnation is how fast everything moves now. Cause and effect used to feel distant. You'd do something, and maybe months later, you'd notice the ripple. But now, the feedback is instant. You think a certain thought and watch as your reality bends to reflect it. You speak something into the world, and it echoes back in ways that feel surgical. There's no more buffer between your inner world and your outer experience. Why? Because the training wheels are off. The universe no longer needs to teach you through long, slow detours. You've graduated beyond that. Now, the mirror is immediate. If you act from fear, you feel it right away. If you respond with love, alignment flows instantly. There's no more pretending, no more hiding, no more unconscious cycles. You're in full co-creation mode now, and the universe is treating you like the soul mature being you are. This doesn't mean everything goes perfectly. In fact, it can feel intense. You'll notice how quickly misaligned decisions feel wrong. You'll feel the energetic weight of saying yes when your soul meant no. But instead of spiraling, something new kicks in: radical responsibility. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance. You stop blaming luck, fate, or other people, because you know now you are a generator, a frequency sender, a conscious architect of experience. And every time you make a choice in alignment with your higher self, life meets you halfway, fast. You might even start testing it, speaking blessings aloud, shifting your energy before difficult moments, visualizing peace before entering chaotic spaces, and watching reality shape itself in real time. It's not magic. It's not coincidence. It's awareness. And it's available to you now because you've earned it over lifetimes. When the soul reaches its final stage, the universe stops whispering and starts responding. When the soul matures, service becomes instinct, not obligation. There comes a moment in the soul's evolution when fulfillment no longer comes from achievement, recognition, or gain. It comes from impact, from the quiet, often unseen ripple your presence leaves behind. If you're in your last life cycle, you've probably felt this shift. You no longer care to stand out. You want to lift others. Whether it's a simple word that shifts someone's day or just the energy you bring into a room, you're constantly scanning for ways to help, to ease, to heal. And here's the wild part. It's not because you're trying to be a good person. You're not doing it for spiritual credit or moral high ground. You're doing it because your soul is wired for it now. It's how you breathe meaning into the world. You notice things others don't. The way someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes, the hesitation in their voice when they say, "I'm fine," the weight they carry, even when they say nothing at all. You see it, and without thinking, you move in. A kind gesture, a grounding word. Sometimes, just your calm presence is enough to help someone exhale. And when you do give, it lights you up in a way nothing else does. That's the sign. You're not here to be seen. You're here to be felt. You're not playing the game of climbing anymore. You're anchoring, holding space, spreading light in quiet, meaningful ways. And what's even more beautiful, it doesn't drain you. It fuels you. Because in this final chapter, your purpose isn't about titles or trophies. It's about frequency. It's about becoming the kind of soul the world remembers, not for what you did, but for how you made it feel. And yes, sometimes this path of service feels lonely. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it is holy. And that's the kind of fulfillment you don't chase. You remember. Helping others isn't your calling, it's your remembrance. The more evolved the soul, the lighter its grip. Letting go used to feel like a loss, but now it feels like truth. It feels like freedom. Because when you've lived enough lifetimes, you start to see the pattern. Everything rises, everything fades, everything transforms. People come and go. Chapters open and close, identities build and dissolve, and instead of resisting it, you begin to flow with it. You stop clinging to what used to define you, the relationships, the roles, the routines. You realize you don't need to possess something for it to be meaningful. Presence becomes more valuable than permanence. There's a softness that enters your energy. You no longer need to control outcomes or force direction. You trust the rhythm of things. You notice beauty not in what lasts, but in what glows briefly and disappears. A look, a laugh, a moment of eye contact with a stranger that lingers longer than it should. You begin to treasure these fleeting things, not mourn them. And strangely, this awareness doesn't make you numb. It makes you more awake. You savor people more because you no longer assume you have forever. You love deeper, not harder. You speak your truth faster. You release what doesn't fit sooner, not out of coldness, but out of clarity. The soul who accepts impermanence becomes unshakable. You're not afraid to lose. You're afraid to miss it. The present moment, the taste of now. Because in the end, you realize control was always an illusion. Clinging was always suffering, but presence, that was always power. And when others are drowning in the fear of endings, you've already found the secret. Endings are the beginning of lightness. They are the spaces that make way for everything new. And you've stopped fighting the tide because now you are the tide. Life starts feeling like reruns. There's a moment when the world around you stops feeling new. Not because you're bored, but because your soul starts recognizing the terrain. You walk into conversations and already know how they'll unfold. You meet people, and even though it's your first encounter, something about their presence feels like a continuation, not a beginning. It's not déjà vu in the cinematic glitch in the matrix sense. It's deeper, more exhausting. You don't just feel like you've been here before, you feel like you've done this before, over and over. The same karmic patterns, the same lessons, dressed in new costumes. It's like life keeps handing you the same script, hoping this time you'll choose a different ending. And the fatigue, it's not just physical, it's soul fatigue. You're tired of the loops, the arguments that circle back to nowhere, the relationships that play out with eerie familiarity, the emotional traps you spot from miles away, but still have to walk through just to finally close the loop. These moments aren't glitches, they're echoes. You're not broken, you're just nearing the final test. When you're in your last cycle, life becomes less about acquiring and more about completing. It sends you back to the unsolved parts, the parent wound that still stings, the insecurity that still flares, the voice that still whispers, "You're not enough." And instead of running, you finally face it. You start noticing the people who trigger you the most are not obstacles. They're your final teachers, the one who betrayed you, the one who abandoned you. They're here again, not to destroy you, but to invite you to respond differently, to finally pass what you once failed. It's not punishment, it's precision. Your soul chose this not to suffer, but to graduate. If everything feels familiar, it's because your soul is almost done rehearsing. And this time, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to win. You just need to respond with awareness. The loops dissolve when you stop engaging them the way you used to. Because in this cycle, the reward isn't a lesson, it's liberation. You become the purpose. At the beginning of your journey, purpose felt like a destination, something to hunt, uncover, or unlock. You thought it lived in a title or a passion or a mission with a name you could place on a website. But eventually, the search dissolves. And that's silence. It's not confusion. It's arrival. You stop obsessing over whether you're meant to be a healer, a creator, a guide, or a leader. You stop anxiously scanning the world for something to do. Instead, you realize you were never meant to do purpose. You were meant to live it. Your being becomes your message. Your integrity becomes your offering. Your presence becomes your power. Even the mundane becomes sacred. It's all on purpose, because now you move with intention, not hustle. You start showing up to life not as someone trying to make it, but as someone who already is it. Your purpose isn't tied to what you achieve. It's tied to how you exist, how you hold others, how you hold yourself, how you walk into a room and shift its energy without saying a word. You don't need the answer anymore, because your life is the answer. Every moment, every choice, every breath is woven with meaning. You don't need to seek. You just need to stay awake. You're not becoming something. You're returning to what you've always been. There's a quiet shift that happens when a soul reaches the end of its cycle. Not a loud epiphany, not fireworks or some cosmic event. It's subtler than that, like a fog slowly lifting. A feeling of recognition that starts settling into your bones. And for many, That moment of inner stillness often happens just after something external shakes loose, like a full moon stripping away what was never truly you. It doesn't arrive through effort. It doesn't come from reading the right books, doing the right rituals, or repeating enough affirmations. It comes in stillness, usually when you're no longer chasing anything, when you stop trying to fix yourself, when you stop trying to earn peace. And in that stillness, something clicks. You realize you were never becoming, you were returning to the part of you that was never scared, never fractured, never confused. The real you isn't a character in the story. The real you is the awareness watching the story, the one that witnessed your childhood like it was a movie, that held space through the pain without turning away, that never once judged you for your mistakes, only observed and learned and waited for the moment you'd finally notice it was always there. You were never lost. You were simply meeting yourself, through form, through experience, through time. You are not your name, not your past, not even your soul in the way it's usually described. You are awareness itself, the silent witness behind every thought, the calm presence beneath every storm, the stillness that existed before this body was born and will remain long after it fades. And when this truth finally settles, not as a concept, but as a living experience, everything shifts. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer seek, you remember. There's nothing to fix, nothing to chase, no peak left to conquer, because you are the peak. And you've just remembered how high you've always been. The moment you awaken to who you truly are, the illusion dissolves and real life begins. From that space, life doesn't flow because you're trying harder. It flows because you've stopped pretending to be anything less than truth itself. You've come full circle, not to an ending, but to profound clarity. If you're still here, thank you for your presence. If this resonated, consider subscribing for more content like this. Your support truly means a lot. And if you feel called, share your reflections in the comments below. Until next time, stay grounded, stay awake, and stay true.